everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Covered and Crowned. My name is Crystal Antoinette, and I have my very good friend, Grace. She is going to be our first guest. So just a little background, Covered and Crowned is a series where we highlight women of God who have been through the fire with God, who've been through the process for their particular segment that we're going to do. And I just felt it necessary to share some of those practical tools. I think a lot of times we have these cliches: oh, I'm a woman of God, I'm a daughter, I'm a queen, but nobody's really digging deep into what does that mean, what God is looking for from us, requirements for the process and for the promise. And I think it's important in this season, as many are building, many are trying to become closer to God, to just share some of that. So for this particular session, it is Esther in the making. I'm so excited. So for those who don't know, Esther was a queen, but before she was actually queen, she was an orphan that was in a city, and she was chosen to go through a year-long process to even be selected before the king. And I think a lot of times when we talk about that particular story, people like to just kind of bypass that year process to the fact that she became queen, but it was actually really rigorous. And I think God does the same with his daughters. It just looks different. So where I would like to start is Grace and I are both single. We're both moms. God really did an alignment with this relationship. And so just kind of talk about what singleness looks like for you, some of the challenges, some of the highs as well.
Whew. Well, that's a mouthful. As Crystal said, I am a single mom. And it's difficult. It gets difficult at times, because I'm always like questioning myself, am I making the right decisions, because my decisions not only affect me, but they also affect, my son. So a lot of times I literally have to lean on to God, to direct my path. In fact, this morning, one of my prayers was like, God, help me regarding to my son. My son's named Eden. Help me regarding to him, and just show him a good example what it is to be a person, not just a follower of Christ, not just a believer of Christ, and not just even a follower of Christ, but really truly show him what it is to be a disciple of Christ. And the word tells us, train up a child in where he should go. When he gets older, he will not depart from it. So I always go to God, truly lean to God, because there's so much going on in this world right now, and you have to stay prayerful. So, and for me, us being single, not just even the term as single mom, but being single, not having that consistent male figure in the house, it gets difficult, because it's like, am I making the right decisions? Because I'm raising a boy. I'm raising a boy. So that in itself sometimes is a part of me that feels guilty, because I'm in this season, I'm not able to provide him with that nuclear family, and there's so much I can only show him as a woman. Of course, I can show him the general aspects of following Christ and living for Christ and glorifying God, but I can't really show him the biblical manhood. I can't do that, because I'm not a man. I can't do that. So that part is a struggle for me sometimes, because I'm like, well, God, when you gonna see him? I need a head.
Right here.
Come on. I need a head. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that I've noticed, and that is a struggle for me, just trying to make sure that Eden has a mentorship. He really has that foundation, of someone that can lead him towards biblical manhood, I mean, fortunately for me, he is in part of some groups and stuff like that kind of help him with leadership. And then of course our youth pastor, he's in a group for that. And our youth pastor is a male, and he has volunteered also to really be there for Eden. If Eden needs him for anything, can talk to him and stuff like that. So he's part of their group, and Eden has access to him. And of course I have my brother, there. And then of course his dad, his dad is is there for him, but it's different when you don't have someone in the house, you know, kind of helping you with making those decisions. But I know God is faithful, and I trust him. So that's the part that makes it a little bit harder for me in this season, is because of my son. Now, if I was by myself, it would still be hard, but it won't be as hard because you have another person you have to consider in this journey. So that's one part that I'm kind of still struggling with, but I know God is faithful.
So we know the kids are important. Now I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. I read a little something that's coming in the next couple months from this wonderful woman of God. And, you know, in your story, you talked about how you don't really do breaks. Most of us, if we could be honest, we tend to go from relationship to relationship to relationship. So when we come to this pivotal point where we're like, okay, God, I'm going to really do what you asked me to do. And the story doesn't turn around in 3 months like we read all the time. That's like a cold shower just hitting you in the face. Because the truth of the matter is, if we were honest, we see so many of these. It's a 2-month turnaround, 3-month turnaround, 6-month turnaround, that when we begin to practice abstinence, when we say we're going to give God a time period to deal with us, in the back of our minds, we're really thinking like, this is short.
Listen.
But sometimes
it ain't.
It's
it
not.
Ain't.
So
3 years.
Right. We're both.
My God.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit about what that looked like in the beginning. Like, yes, we know probably for the first couple weeks or a month it was okay because there's a lot of change. But when life kind of settled down for you and your son, what did that really look like to be single and to stay in that place?
It was difficult to do because, as you said, I was used to being in relationships. I mean, my last relationship was 7 years, and then it came to a place of even engagement. Like we were engaged, and after he proposed to me, like literally a month later, it just blew up. And although the signs were already there that there was issues, you know, we tend to ignore things even though there's red flags and caution signs. But it was difficult in the beginning for me because I really had to settle my mind like, dang, I'm single for real this time. Like, I'm not in any situationship.
Right.
I'm not even intentionally dating anyone. I really had made a decision. God had actually told me, gave me a word to get off the dating sites. This was even before I even rededicated my life to God in 2018. Wow. He started stirring in my spirit like, listen, you got all this stuff that you keep going back and forth and just repeat a cycle. So I had to literally get myself off the dating sites. And it was hard for me to do because I'm like, well, if I'm not on the dating sites, how am I going to meet anybody?
How am I going to be found?
How am I going to be found? I work. I mean, how am I going to be found? Like, this, no. So he gave me strict instructions to get off of it. Even though I didn't understand, I did it. You know, I went ahead and like, because I was starting to feel like uneasy about stuff. I didn't really know it was even discernment then because I didn't really know any of this stuff. So, but I just knew that it didn't feel right. I need to get off of this. I keep running to the same type of dude, but just in a different package. You know what I mean? So it was time for me to get off of that. So the beginning, when reality hit me, like, I'm really single for real, I'm like, dang. And then people weren't even approaching me. And I'm like, well, dang, am I ugly or something? What's wrong with me? You know, so I really feel like God was hiding me because he needed to work things in me. So it was very difficult to even coming out of a relationship for so long. Then I didn't know, you know, even though I went through my little dating phase, there was just things I still didn't know. I didn't know anything about kingdom dating or anything. I never did anything dating with purpose. I never knew any of that stuff. So it was really difficult trying to transition to that. And then on top of it, when you're trying to settle yourself down, that's when the enemy will send you things. So I kept getting distractions. People were from my past. So no new people were approaching me, but people from my past. So like will hit me in my DMs. I'm like, bruh, I ain't even talked to you like forever. What do you want? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I really had to train my mind, like, to even recognize when the enemy was sending me distractions for me not to fall back into that. So people don't talk. We don't talk enough about the beginning, when distractions, when God tells you to you settle down and pause on these things.
Yeah.
What do you do when the enemy sends you distractions? What do you do when he sends you these things, these old lifestyle, these old habits? What do you do in those instances? So I really had to get prayerful, like, well, Lord, I'm trying to do this for real.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna need help. I mean, you need to bring some community to me, because if you don't, I'm about to call this dude up that's been hitting me up. It was that real.
Yeah.
It was that serious. And and this is, I'm a very transparent person. You know me very well. And I lost my virginity at 15. You know what I'm saying? So sex has always been something that I always resorted to because of the things I dealt with in my life, the abandonment issues I had with my father, and the rejection stuff, all these things that I didn't know that was really the driver of my behaviors and my thought process. So sex was my go-to. So for me to tell God, like, I want to do this for real, I'm going to remain pure. There's a difference between abstinence and purity, but I'm going to remain pure. So it wasn't just even me about giving up, my body to honor the Lord and, honor myself and honor my future spouse. Yeah. He was telling me to get rid of other things. And I'm like, sir, you got me off the dating apps. I done gave you my body. Like, I blocked these dudes. I'm not doing all that. Now you want me to get rid of the books. You want me to change some of this music I'm listening to. Like, this stuff is real. This stuff is real because it opens the gateway to other things. I'm dealing with the lust and stuff. I can't read books that has basically soft porn in there. I can't listen to certain music that are explicit because it's going to get me all of my feelings and want me to go back to where God had pulled me from. So in that beginning thing is a lot of purging. And we don't realize that God is doing a lot of purging, and it hurts. It's painful. That heart transformation is painful. It's not easy. That wilderness season is not easy, and I'm still in the wilderness season. So that is not easy. So we don't talk about enough of the purging. We think when God gives us a command and we just go and obey, that there's nothing that He's still doing with us in that particular moment. So and that beginning was hard for me, trying to get away from the old lifestyle. There's certain things I was adamant about that I wasn't going to do, but there's subtle things too that came about. I'm like, if I do this, I mean, is something really going bad happen from that? You know what I mean? So those are the things that God had to really strip me from, those mindsets. So in the beginning, it was not easy trying to adjust and try to walk in obedience and live in a life that glorify God and wait, because it's easily accessible if I really wanted it. So that's the part of dying to your flesh we don't talk about. That's hard. That's hard to do. So that's how it was for me in the beginning.
That was so good. I feel like I have like 5 bullet points that I want to hit with that. The first part that was key in what you said was, the process is kind of like what happened with Jesus. God brought you out. You were on fire. This is what I want to do for you. In the moment that the wait began to get long, that's when the enemy came and tried to tempt you, just like Jesus. He was at the end of his 40-day fast. He wasn't at day 20, 15. He was at the end. It was over. And that's when the enemy came and said, I know you're hungry.
That's right.
Make this stone some bread.
Right.
So it's important to know that whether it looks good, whether you can see the red flags up front, that when you really commit to God, when you really surrender to His way, the enemy is going to come. We are in a war, and there's always another side that's trying to find an advantage through our weaknesses.
That's right.
And like you said, because this is our first time, we don't have that blueprint, and it's not something that a lot of people talk about. So, what do you do in that scenario? I'm glad that you touched on community, because a lot of times we fall because we won't be honest.
That's right.
That's one thing I love about my relationship with Grace is whether I'm high or I'm low, I have my sister. And sometimes she shares things with me that do not make me feel good. They sting. It's not what I want to hear. But at the end of the day, she's sharpening me. She is cutting through the deception. She's cutting through my fatigue from the journey and helping me to stay on course. And sometimes God doesn't speak directly to us. There's been many instances in the Bible where he uses someone else.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when we're asking God for help, he's sending someone. And when we put ourselves in these cocoons, nobody needs to know my business, I can do that all by myself,
That's right.
then that's why we fall, because we're one person alone, trying to figure out this new path that we never designed. So I think that is so good. So we know that, there have been some people in the past that have come up and you've dealt with that beautifully. But what about when you get weary? So not when other people come and they're checking for you. What happens when you have this promise from God and it still hasn't manifested, and again the wait just seems to be longer and longer? You see friends and family starting to take off, whether it's a business, whether it's marriage, whatever, and you're sitting here with a promise but you don't see anything to help stir your faith. What does that look like?
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Although you're happy for other people, obviously, and you want to celebrate with them, but there is a part of you that gets frustrated. And I'm not saying that we obey for things, but the word just tells us that he rewards those who diligently seek him. So it gets frustrating at times because you're like, my God, I'm doing this, that, and the third. And although it's for our growth and it's for us to continue to grow in an intimate relationship with God, like I said, obedience is not to gain things.
Yeah.
But we also know the promises of God. We also know that there's instructions that's attached to the promise. So when you're following the ways of God and you see someone that may not even be following the ways of God, I'm like, and I just had a conversation with Tiffany about that. And I'm like, Tiffany, I'm like celebrating for people who did it the world's way. The way where I was in. How come they done had this opportunity multiple times and I haven't even had it once? And that's real.
Yeah.
That's real. That's the human part of us that has that, and that's the part I have to commit to God.
Right.
So when I start realizing that I'm feeling some type of way, I'm either feeling salty about a situation or, I'm feeling weary or down about a situation or frustrated, that's the part I have to commit to God. I have to be honest with myself. I can't sit up here and act like this. The rainbows is in the sky and the birds are chirping, because my life is not always about us like that. So I have to okay, Grace, why are you feeling this way? And then I have to start processing my emotions and to figure out why am I being triggered, and then I give it to the Lord. I give it to the Lord, God, this is how I feel. And be honest with God. Even when I get angry with God, I give it to him. I have to.
So right there, I want to interject. What does that look like? Because I feel like this is another great area that people have. We say be honest, but what does that really look like in those not so fun times, and those times where you're angry, when you're sad, or when you're brokenhearted? What does that look like going to him? Is that just a half hour in prayer? Do you just read the Bible and then it's done and you feel better? What does that
pray.
look like?
I pray. I go to prayer and tell God exactly how I feel. Like how you and I would have a conversation is how I go to God. I go to God with how I feel, just to get it out. Whether it's crying, and the word tells us that Holy Spirit can even intercede in us and pray. Even when I don't have something to say because there's so much emotions there and I can't get it out, I just sit there and cry. And God can really hear my heart even through my tears, because the Holy Spirit intercedes for me. So I'll cry it out. I write it down. You and I are big on writing. So I write things out. I write my feelings out, or I ask God, can you give me a word? And he always sends me something, whether it's a person or something I see on social media or something I hear on TV. I always tell you that Hallmark is prophetess for me, because I be hearing God in Hallmark. It's real. It's real. So he'll send me something just to remind me that he has not forgotten about me, just to remind me that my feelings are valid. Because I think sometimes we get this image of God as this, he is, we do have a reverence and honor for God, But we get this thing like God is sitting on this mountaintop and just like holding things back from people and withholding all this stuff. And that's not how the nature of God, you know. I really believe God wants the things for us more than we even want for ourselves based on his will, right? So I go to God with my emotions. He cares about every little thing that's going on with us. He's very intentional. So the same way I speak to you is the same way I go to God with the whole emotions. I don't hold anything back because he already knows anyway. So why won't I be transparent? So I tell him like, God, I'm kind of like, I'm struggling right now. I'm struggling right now. I see such and such is doing this, and I'm sitting here like, okay, when is it my turn? Or something I thought was gonna happen, and then I got completely wrong. Like, I have to cry. Sometimes I'll be on that ground just crying, just crying my feelings out, and like, how, like, God, what's going on or whatever, and I usually feel better afterwards because I felt like I got other stuff off my chest, and he understands. And like I said, I'll get a peace about it. It's like literally I'll get off the ground with a burden that's been lifted. You can literally feel like there's a lifting off of you. But I always recommend people just be real. Like the way you speak to your sisters, whoever. Go to God the same way. Be transparent. Don't hold nothing back. Like, just say whatever you're feeling, whatever comes to your mind at that time is what you need to speak and get it out. So that's what it looks like to me. So I go to God, full transparency, what's going on with me. I write it out. I ask him to give me something in the word, and he'll send me something in the word, or I may see repetitive scriptures or repetitive symbolism or any words that helps me, and I write it out. And that's pretty much what helps me when I'm dealing with heaviness. So that's the best way to do it. Or you can also, sometimes it sends you, like I said, people. Like, you can literally go talk to one of your friends and they just listen. I think what people are looking for is someone to actually listen to them.
That's good.
So, you know, when you go to someone that you trust. I think that not every friend should be privileged to what's going on with you. I'm just being honest. You know, there are just certain people you can't go to with everything. So you just have to use discernment who you know that you can go and talk to about, who's going to generally listen to you. And I think people just want to be heard. So when people get it out, they feel better, because even if the problem has not been resolved, it's just the idea that they got it out of their heads that helps them. So, you know, that's what helps me in those type of situations.
That's so good. I agree. I'll be honest. I think as the oldest and a bit of a loner growing up, it's easy for me to be in my own bubble. So Grace does this all the time. There might be periods during the day where I'm working that she won't receive a text, but if it becomes a bit of a pattern, even into the evening, I'm gonna hear from her about it. Why? Because my default is there's something going on. I can't control it. I can't fix it right now, or I don't understand, and so I'm going back into a cave. And what that does is it offers the enemy more space to feed you lies, to prey on your weakness, and to get you to do something that is contrary to the will of God. And so I think you're right. We have to move past the facade of friendships where we're friends because we go out. No, that's not a friend. A friend is someone who's going to be there when everything falls down. It's someone who's going to have your back, who can pray for you, who you can be intimate and say how you really feel, and not worry that Facebook and IG is going to find out because you've shared that piece. And the same way that you build that with a friend, you can build that with God. And it's most important to build it with him first, because he's perfect. So where, you know, Grace or myself may have a bad day and we might not be able to be there for one another because of what's going on in our own lives, God is never like that.
That's right.
His grace is sufficient and his love covers all. And so as you learn to have that intimacy with someone, or with the one who's perfect, and allow him to love you back, it makes it easier to begin to establish that same dynamic with people who are flawed.
That's right.
And so I just encourage you, you know, wherever you are in your waiting season, Whether you're about to cross over or not, it's important to open yourselves up to God, to hear Him, because we want to make sure that whatever you're walking into is really the perfect will of God, that you're not being deceived, but also He sends friends and people to help you along the way and to encourage you, but also to give you truth and love. And so that's important in your journey. Now, outside of that, the part that people, I think, also overlook is, yes, she became queen, but it wasn't for the sake of being queen. So
there was intentional purpose in that.
Exactly. And so even when it comes to purpose in the wait, what does that look like for you? How did you find your purpose while you were waiting? Did your singleness have any impact on that and your ability to cultivate it? And how has operating in your purpose changed your outlook on who God has designed for you, or your idea of the man that God has designed for you?
Well, that's a loaded question.
I know.
But that's good. That's really good, because I do hear that all the time. Anytime I do any type of podcast or any type of speaking event, they do ask about the purpose. And I always believe, well, first of all, we need to define what purpose is. And purpose is something that's created for a specific thing, So God had us in mind when He put all the ingredients in us of what we're going to do, including our personality, the way we do things. He put everything in there. So for me, purpose is not something that you just wake up one morning, okay, I know my purpose. I do believe when we walk out in obedience, take that one step, He'll show us a little something. We'll do that. Then we walk out. The sermon I was watching, we love Jerry, and he was talking about, a lot of times we don't get a next instruction because we didn't follow the old instruction. So God will reveal things to us as we follow what He tells us to do. And I think that's how purpose works, is when you actually do that thing, do not despise small beginnings. So when you actually do that one thing, whether it's small or big to you, it opens doors to something else. So for me, my singleness actually helped introduce me to my purpose. I was already operating in my purpose, in a sense of the things He's brought me through the whole journey of my life. As I look back, the things that I've encountered and how I dealt with it, there was a lot of other qualities there, like leadership and all these different things that I was doing even prior to having a true intimate relationship with God. But my singleness, what that happened was, it allowed me to not be distracted. So remove distractions, and all I had was God, because He stripped everything from me. So all I had was to lean onto God. And who's going to give me purpose? The person who gives me identity, which is God, because He gives us identity. So our purpose is tied to our identity. So I had to first get in a relationship with God, a true intimate relationship with God, for me to even figure out who Grace is, for me to even be able to walk into my purpose. So you can't be catapulted into your purpose till you actually know who you are. In order to know who you are, you have to spend that time with our Creator, because He's the one that gives us identity. He's the one that gives us purpose. So my singleness, I didn't have anything to be distracted anymore from. I had no man. I was in transition and all this stuff, and God was pulling me towards Him. Was like, you need to get yourself together. So without all those other distractions of the world, with Him dealing with me and my heart, with my relationship with my dad, dealing with all those heart wounds I had, when God was helping me, some of those was being cleared out, then I could truly see myself, how God saw me. Then I could start seeing the things that He's calling me to do, because the simple fact is, I started to see myself and how He originally created Grace.
There it is. Yeah.
And it brought me back to, so that restoration was there. Because one thing I've learned is how the enemy deceives us, right? In the beginning of Genesis with Eve, right? And Eve, the enemy came to Eve and was telling, like, you know what, just take a bite of this fruit.
It's always
just
small.
Take a bite of this fruit. You'll be just like God. But Eve forgot that God made her in his image. He made mankind in their image. That's what we said, in our image. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So she was already made in God's image. But because the enemy deceived her and put that doubt in her, she didn't realize what she had in herself. So if Eve recognized that her identity, and if she recognized that she's already in the nature of God, she already has the nature of God in her, the enemy deceived her. So that's how he comes. He comes for our identity. So I had to go back to who Grace truly was created to be. So God had to restore me back to the original Grace before all this stuff that I was doing, all these things I was getting myself involved that tainted who I was. So when I was able to get back to God and get back to my identity, that's when he started revealing my purpose. God is not gonna, he is not. I really believe, like, in this modern days church we have so much talk about blessings and so much talk about all this other stuff. Not that there's not anything good in that, but there's real, true heart stuff we don't talk about. And we don't talk about identity. We don't talk about how the enemy tries to derail us from who we truly are. It's hard for God can't open doors to certain things and you're still living in a certain lifestyle. It's just not going to happen.
That's good.
It's just not going to happen. So because he doesn't want you to mishandle that thing he's going to give you. So he had to strip those things from me so I can focus on him, so he can be able to reveal the things that he wants from me, right? So as I started listening to God and really pushing me in, and then when I had rededicated my life to God and he led me to the church, right? Led me to my church, that is a supernatural how he even led me to my church. That was my first time truly even hearing God's voice and knowing that was God, because I never heard God's voice before. And when he led me to my church, and like literally the following year, they asked me to join children's ministry to teach. And I'm like, teach children's ministry? Me? Ministering children, like teaching them the word of God, like Jesus? That's what y'all want me to do? And when the lady approached me about it, I was like, absolutely not. I did not want to do it. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Is there another ministry I can be part of? I don't want to do that. But anyway, I had told her yes. So I just went ahead and did. I was like, let me just go ahead and do it. Not knowing that God would set me up, right? So that was training ground for me. And I think he also, as I talk about it, I think he also gave it to me to test me, to see if I can handle that. Because he can't enlarge my territory if I can't be a good steward of what he gives me, right? So he put me in children's ministry as I've been developing in that. And then, a year later, getting a mentor and all these different things. And in 2019, he called me and said, you're going to minister. And I'm like, minister what?
Right.
I'm like, God, like, you done asked me, I done gave my life back to you. I'm now walking in purity. I'm abstaining, Lord, and doing all these different things. You asked me to do children's ministry. I signed up. Like, what more? Like, it was like adding more stuff. So people understand when you ask God to enlarge your territory, it comes with responsibility. So even with children's ministry or whatever, as I started learning, I grew up in the church, but, so many things happened and I left the church for over 17 years. So I've always loved the word of God. I've always loved teaching. That's always been my passion since we were kids. I used to teach my brother and sister all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm like, class again, Grace? So that's always been, being a teacher has always been one of my giftings. But anyway, he put me in that place to truly train me. And when I was told, when I was hearing the word, but other people were confirming, like, yeah, Grace, you're going to be in ministry and all this. I'm like, no, Grace will not be preacher. Grace is not. I literally just came into agreement with it. My journey. So I literally just, because even last year when it kept being heavy, I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do my videos and some of my videos, but I am not going to be breaking down. No. So, but it took me allowing the Lord and obeying even that first instruction he gave me. I think if I just said flat out I wasn't going to do children's ministry and ran away from it, I probably would never have came to agreement even till now as I look back to it. So it's just walking out in obedience and doing what he's called you to do. And as you go, that purpose, you'll start seeing different things, the different assignments and what he's purposed you to do. So that's kind of like how it that's how kind of it helped me. And I know that I will have international ministry. I already know
right.
that.
You better say that.
So I already knew since 2019, it's like Grace, I already knew that I was going to be speaking on different platforms. And I even told you, I was like, yeah, I want to be an international speaker. I'm just letting you know right now. Okay. That's what Grace is about to do. And so those things, as I started obeying God, he started revealing me those assignments and stuff, and just started me where I'm at now, and just doing the things I'm doing and speaking on different platforms and stuff like that. And I knew that was from God, because it's aligned with his will, and he's opened opportunities for me to have an opportunity to share my story and just minister to people. And then he's put me in this season now where I'm doing more ministry work and with my videos that I'm doing and teaching his word. So it's just about obedience, just doing whatever he asks you to do. And then as time, he will reveal pieces of that puzzle. He will continue revealing one piece at a time. Because I truly believe if God gave us everything at one time, we would run.
I'd be like, I don't want to do this.
We'd be just like Jonah.
I'm headed out. Because
it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. So I'm just thankful. And now that I understand my purpose, I already know that whoever he sends me has to be aligned with the purpose. The word tells us, can two walk together except they agreed? So I can't be with someone who is not going to come into agreement with the will of God. I can't be with someone who's like, oh, you're going to minister or you're going to go speak somewhere. In fact, Eden's grandmother and I was just talking about that today. I can't be with someone who's not going to come into agreement. They don't necessarily, I don't believe they necessarily may be I believe in a God. They probably are going to be part of the fivefold ministry. I keep telling you this. That has not gone away. However, I also, at the same token, we have to come into agreement. I know I can't be with someone who doesn't believe in, ministry, or, doesn't want anything to do with ministry in any capacity or anything like that, because that's going to be difficult for me, for where God is sending me. And of course, I have to come into agreement with whatever my husband is going to do, you know what I mean? So it's important that he knows his purpose too, because if his purpose is totally not aligned with mine, then I know that it's not God sent, you know. So that's important that we come into agreement, because I know my purpose and I know my identity in God. That gives me even discernment when someone comes to me and I have questions, hard questions to ask them, and we're not aligned, and I can't force that, because that's not God's will, because God would never attach me to someone that our purpose is not in alignment. That's just not going to happen, because it's confusion. And it's going to be hard to truly build God's kingdom, because that's what he attaches to people. He doesn't connect us to our purpose mate to just flick it up on IG. It ain't just about the cute pics. That's beautiful and all. I'm not knocking that, but it's more than that. It's about being a bloodline shifter. It's about building God's kingdom. Is about winning souls for the Lord through our union. So I can't be with someone who doesn't agree. We're not coming to agreement in the purpose, the vision that God has for our life. I can't do that, because it's never going to work. And it's out of God's will. So when it's out of God's will, it's not going to be sustainable, because it's out of God's will. So now that I understand more of that, I have a lot more discernment. Like, no, sir.
At all. No, that's what I like about just even how you shared that particular part, is the whole process. So even when we go back and we think about Esther, she didn't have some type of dream before she hit the palace. Nobody stopped her on the street and gave her a revelation. She literally was just guided in, and her uncle stayed to make sure she was good. And once she was in, she was told and then processed through a purification process. That's it. During that, she got the favor of the eunuch who was in charge of all of the women. But it was not until she was queen, it was not until the end that her uncle told her the purpose which God set her there for. So I love that, even just being transparent and saying, like, listen, if God had given me all of this while I was still wilding out in the world, I wouldn't be doing, like, if I had a man, that's where my attention would be. I wouldn't, listen, Let's be real,
I'm
y'all.
just keeping it 100.
We would be like, God, I see you on a Sunday. Thank you for this a specimen of a man Monday through Friday. Thank you very much. But because he knows us inside and out, he knows why we have to take certain walks. And to your point, if she hadn't been humble, because that was what Queen Vashti's issue was.
Yes.
Her predecessor was proud. So God sent her through a process to make sure she was going to remain humble, so that when she finally got to the place where he needed her to be an advocate for her people, which was her purpose, she would get there and show up in the right capacity. If she had been proud, she probably would not have obtained favor with the king to even be in that place to say, hey, this is what's going on.
That's right.
So we have to remember, whether your wait is 2 days, whether your wait is 5 months, if it's 3 years like we're waiting, or maybe you're someone who's pushing 10 years, there is a reason for the process. And maybe it's not you. Maybe he has to align your kingdom partner. But he's doing something in both people. He's setting you up. Even with Moses, he was born in the place where he was meant to deliver people.
That's right.
But even though he was always there, it wasn't until he left for 40 years that he was able to go and do what he needed to do. So stay encouraged and really seek God in this place. Like, I know that you have not connected me with my husband yet, or my wife, to those men who may be watching, but there's something that you're processing in me now. There's something that you're either taking out in the purification process, or there's something that you're building in me, so that when it's time, I can be the person for them that I need to be. But also, whenever you connect me or put me on that platform to do whatever it is that you called me to do, I can handle it. I have the right posture for you. I will give you the glory, and I will be a banner to the world, and that's the important thing. So just be encouraged with that, and just know, just as we are literally walking this out day by day, guys, that we are still waiting, we're still prayerful, we're still faithful with the little while we wait for him to give us much. So that was so good. I'm so glad you shared that.
And I love what you said about even when you get to that place of, be able to handle it. Even with Queen Esther, she was the queen, but she still honored her king, right?
Yes.
She still followed the laws, I would say, of the palace, of having him to request her. She made it known to her cousin Mordecai about that. And even when God puts us in that place, even when we get that promise, or whatever that promise is, we still have to honor God, right? We still have to honor the process. And as you said, her purification, it humbled her, it gave her humility. So when we go through that process and we finally get our promise, or whatever it is that you're waiting for God for, it helps you appreciate it more. It helps you even steward over that thing more, because you went through the process. You really went through the wilderness for that thing. You paid for it. Cost for it. It's heavy. It's heavy. Okay?
Yes.
So you paid for it. So I love that what you said, because when you was talking, that's what came to my head about that honor. And so we have to get to that place of our heart posture. You have to have the right heart posture right from the very beginning, because as you keep going up, it's going to get harder. It's not going to be easy. We talk so much about kingdom marriage, but we don't talk about what happens when you get in that thing, right?
Come on.
And if you don't have those ingredients, the fruits of the Spirit, if you're not allowing God to cultivate you and process you with those fruits of the Spirit in the beginning, when you get that thing, it's going to be so much harder to develop it when you're in it. So God is trying to get you in a place where your heart is in the right place. You have the right motives, the right intentions, and you're able to have that forgiveness, because you're going to have to forgive in marriage. You're going to have that gentleness, that loving, because you're dealing with someone who's flawed, as you had mentioned earlier. You're dealing with someone who's flawed. And I remember 2 years ago, God told me, I heard this so clearly in my spirit. He was like, how can you trust? He was telling me, if you can't trust me, who is perfect, how can you trust a man who is flawed? Man, he snatched my edges with that one. Okay. I said, God, I hear you.
Because it's true.
Because it's true. because you're dealing with a whole nother individual that has their own issues and things that God's working out in them, right? And they're not going to be perfect when they come to you. There's things that you guys have to unpack together,
Yes.
right? So if you're not getting some of that stuff taken care of in your singleness and trusting God and honoring God now, it's going to be so much more difficult when you get that promise or whatever it is that you're looking for. So I always just encourage people, just the journey is hard, but be open to it. Be open to it. It's really going to be for your own benefit at the end, and for whoever, your husband, wife is going to be good at the end, or whatever he's promised, not just a marriage, but whatever he's promised in your life. And it's at the end of the day, it's to bring God the glory. It's to bring God the glory. That is the end goal. It's not for us, like I said, it's not for us to have, yes, we reap the benefits of the things that God gives us. I'm not going to take away from that. But the end goal is for God to get the glory.
Absolutely.
And he uses everything as a stage. So our lives is a living epistle. Right? Our life is a message. So he's using us as the stage for people to see God. So you have to allow him to process you, because we want to be a witness. We want to be a good witness, right? So what you said was really good. Getting your heart posture, just getting your posture in the right place. That's it.
And I think the last thing, just to wrap it up, is, we touched on Mordecai a little bit. A lot of times we feel like, I'm good, I got it, I'm doing well, I don't need anybody. We're comfortable with going to conferences, we're comfortable taking a workshop, but we don't want to take the risk, of asking people to mentor us, and then doing what's necessary for real mentorship, because it's more than someone just giving you advice. It requires some work, and it does require some openness. So I know more recently you got a mentor in this part of your process. So just talk to us about, how that's benefited you while you're in your single season, and some of the things that you've learned from her that is priceless, and, how that's affecting you moving forward.
Yes, I've had a mentor for over a year, and the guy has sent me the mentor. In fact, the way he told me that I needed a mentor, I didn't believe him at first. I'm like, why do I need a mentor for?
See?
Be honest with you, I'm so rebellious, y'all. Pray for me. Why, Lord, is still working on me. So anyway, when he told me in my bedroom, you need a mentor, I didn't know. It just came in my mind. I'm like, why would I even be thinking about that? I'm like, I don't need no mentor. Then he was like, then I heard the voice again, you need a mentor. I was like, okay, Lord, well, if I need a mentor, then who is it? And he dropped her name. He dropped her picture in my head, and he dropped her name in my spirit. So I was like, and I knew exactly why he told me to go to her specifically. And she's been a godsend, just walking me, not just through ministry, but even just walking me through life in general, and helping me to understand that, Grace, you need to take correction. Because I've always been the type of person, you can't tell me nothing. That's how I'll be honest.
You need to take correction. Not that wasn't, oh, you just need somebody to go shopping, and the first thing is the hardest thing.
Correction. And she corrects me. So she don't just support me. She also drives me back to God.
That's good.
Like, what did God say about that? And she was like, well, Grace, I don't think you handled it that way. There's some instances when I tell her something I've gone through, she was like, Grace, you didn't handle that the right way. And I appreciate that about her, because I don't need a yes ma'am or yes sir. I need someone in my corner that's truly going to hold me accountable. When I'm wrong, say I'm wrong, so I can be able to gain wisdom to be able to move forward in case I ever come into a situation like that already. I know what to do because I already had someone guide me. And the word tells us there's safety in a multitude of counselors. And the people perish because of a lack of knowledge, and the reason we have a lack of knowledge is because of our pride. So she helping me come down on my pride, because sometimes like I don't need nobody. That single mom syndrome, I don't need nobody. I got this, because we're so used to doing for ourselves and have to depend on ourselves and not, depend on other people. So I thank God for her to allow me to, strip some of my pride and ask for help, ask for that counsel, allow her to come into my personal space, because there's some things that I told her that I didn't even tell my mama. Okay. So it's just allowing her to come into my personal space, come up in my business, and really help me trying to process those things, and also even validate some of my feelings. It's always good to have that validation, like, okay, Grace, I hear you. I hear you. I not understand, but let's look at a different perspective, so I appreciate her for that, and just being involved in my life, there for my son and all that stuff. So she's, she all in my business for everything, and I told her time, I was like, you know what? You are God sent. I'm so thankful, and I know why God gave her to me. I know why, and so I'm appreciative of her. She's definitely my Naomi for real. Getting a mentor, and then I had the business coach. I did that, and then he broke me down with me, and I had to get a relationship and dating coach. I did not want to do that. I was like, I don't need no help in this. Yes, I do. Yes, I did. So just me removing my pride and humbling myself, like, Grace, you don't know everything. You need help in this area, and giving that over to God, and then He directs me the people. I don't go looking for anybody. If I need something, I ask Him, and He would drop their name, like, this is the way, or He gives me multiple confirmation. This is who you need to align yourself with, and they will help you in this area. So just being to trust Him that He sent me the right people, and I've not been disappointed yet. Even when I was praying for you guys, I ain't been disappointed yet. Okay, y'all better listen to the Lord. Tell y'all.
So, one thing I liked about your transparency with her is, I feel like this is an issue we have all the time. It's like going to the doctor, you're in pain, and so they're like, what's going on? And you say nothing. But then you sit there waiting for them to, like, diagnose you. How are you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. So we have unrealistic expectations of these mentors, because we're not giving them anything to work with. You want me to speak into your life. You want me to pray on your behalf, but then you don't give me anything to pray for. We see that on Facebook all the time.
That's right.
I don't want to tell y'all what's going on. Just pray for me. What am I praying for? So we have to be willing to open up. When you are really in pain and you go to the doctor, if you have a broken arm, you don't say, I have a headache. You say, doctor, my arm is broken, my hand's not working. Or I can feel 3 fingers, but I can't feel the other one, so that they can prescribe and deal with the real issue versus trying to find this thing that's wrong with you in the dark, which prolongs your help, your healing. And the same is with people. It could prolong you getting to your destination. It could delay your healing process. It can delay your growth. We focus on healing, but God also wants us to grow and flourish. And if we can't have those real conversations, then it stunts everything. It delays everything. And then I just want to encourage those who may still be growing in their relationship with God. Maybe you don't hear God as clearly. I'm one. Some things I do hear really clearly, some I don't. Even if He doesn't drop a name for you, He will give you favor. That was the one thing about her story, is everyone that she came in contact with, He gave her favor with. And so, I want you to observe those around you. If you're looking for a dating coach, observe those who are married.
That's right.
And who have been married for years. And you see more than just their IG pictures, that you've been around, even if it's just in church, and you've been able to see how they interact with each other. And then take that to God. God, I see this woman, she has 3 kids. They've been married, I think, for about 4 or 5 years. Is this someone that you would like me to partner with?
That's right.
If it's spiritual, sometimes you'll see that people check in on you. One of my mentors was good for that. She would seek me out of a crowd, even if I was trying to hide. And I recognized that God was giving her insight into my life. And so I approached her based on that. So even if you are still what we call a babe in Christ, and you don't hear that clearly, as you observe, as you take it to God, you will find that He will open the door to the people and the relationships that He wants you to be a part of. But once He opens the door, it's your responsibility
to take it.
Take the mask off, and allow the relationship to become everything that it's supposed to become.
Right.
So, anyway.
And before you finish, let me touch on whether even hearing from God.
Mm-hmm.
I know we can sometimes get over spiritual about things, and I just want to encourage people that the written word is God's voice. So there's not, some people hear audible voice, but you have to learn how God speaks to you. We're all different. So even if you don't hear a voice or whatever, or it's not always even audible, even if you don't feel anything in your spirit or whatever, go back to God's word. That's it. And that is his voice. That's the main way he communicates with majority of us. So don't ever feel like, oh my God, I don't hear a voice.
Yeah.
Don't listen. Don't feel like any type of way, okay? So the more you spend time with God, the more you'll realize how he speaks to you, because he has a unique way of speaking to you, and for you to understand how he gets your attention. Go back to the word. That's it. That is God's voice. So I just wanted to just piggyback and put that for anyone who feels discouraged about not hearing from God. You can hear from God. Just read his word. That's it.
And I think that's good, because, that is what feeds us. And it never returns into him void. It never changes. And so I think that's good. I think right now we have become so accustomed to just listening to other people and wanting to hear what other people say.
Yeah.
But we have a blueprint that, yes, gives us rules, but it gives us tips, it gives us wisdom, it gives us hope. It also gives us the realness of life. Not one person in the Bible was perfect. Even with Esther, she was an orphan.
Yeah.
So you're talking about someone who didn't have a lineage, wasn't a part of a royal bloodline, but still was put in the royal house. And even when it came out who she was and the nation she was from, it doesn't say anything that he looked down on her differently or that she was removed or replaced, because that was where God had intended for her. So you can always find someone to identify with, someone to get hope from, and you can also find the different ways that God speaks to his sons and daughters. So that's good. I love that. Any final thoughts? And please feel free to share all of your handles, any announcements or anything you want, so that people can connect with you.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts, just stay encouraged. We all in this wait, okay? And there is something on the other side, regardless what the promise is. Just the word tells us, let's not get weary in doing good, for in due season the harvest will be there if we faint not. So the instructions is not to faint, it's to faint not, right? It's to faint not, so don't give up. My handles, Instagram is Miss MS, because this is single, okay?
This one.
Miss Grace Onuegbu. I'm messing with y'all. Miss Grace Onuegbu on Instagram. I also at Woman Arise Academy is also on Instagram. I do have my YouTube channel. Get more messages on there, and that's Woman Arise TV, so you can find me on YouTube. My business page on Facebook is Smile Biz LLC, so you can find that. And then I do have Woman Arise Tribe, which is a community of sisters. I really love it, and you can find that on Facebook as well. You can just request to join. It's just a community of like-minded women. We do intercessory prayer there. We're going to be starting Bible study next month there, which I'm excited about. I just give opportunity for women just to be their authentic self, and it's a place where we all come from different walks of life, all come in different journeys in our spiritual and our faith. So it's not for holy feel saved, it's for people who wants to grow in their walks. So no matter whether you are a new believer or you've been in church forever, the faith forever, or whatever, it's just at the end of the day, it's for us to mature and grow in our walk and truly start walking in our purpose. So you can check us out on Facebook and request to join. We would love to have you in the community. We also do personal development as well in there too. That's about it. And also you can request me on my regular Facebook profile, Grace Grace Esther Onuegbu. I know it's funny that we talking about Esther. That's my name, Esther.
He works all things.
Confirmation.
Yes.
So you can find me on Facebook. So that's it for me. And I got some things coming down the pipeline. So
Stay tuned.
So stay tuned
Stay
for that.
tuned.
So that's exciting. So yeah, that's me.
Hey everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed Grace today. I love her so much, and I hope that you were able to get some nuggets, get some practical tools, but mostly get some hope, and hopefully this helped your faith to arise a little bit no matter where you are in the journey. Please definitely take some time to read about Esther, read about her process and the story. No matter where you are, God has you in the palm of his hands. He knows your end from your beginning, and your destiny is great, and your story is going to match that because it's for his glory. So stay in the process. Don't give up. If you need to recoup, if you need to sit down for a second, make sure you reach out to like-minded people, a mentor, someone who can pray for and with you, who can be a shoulder for you, and then get back in the game. Make sure that you're reading your Bible so that you're filling yourself up on the word. Fast and pray, as that will continue to strengthen your inner man. And I look forward to hearing the good things that God is going to do in your life. Talk to you later.